The rotors of the Black Hawk sliced through the chilling mountain air, heralding our approach to a remote region scarred by mystery and fear. I gazed out at the rugged landscape, feeling the weight of command heavy on my shoulders. My team, each a specialist in their field, prepared silently for the mission ahead. Sergeant First Class Ramirez, our team sniper, was methodically checking his rifle, his eyes as sharp as the bullets he loaded. Staff Sergeant Lee, the communications specialist, was calibrating his equipment, ensuring we stayed connected in this desolate terrain. Sergeant Brooks, our medic, was quietly arranging her medical supplies, ready to provide aid at a moment's notice. Corporal Davis, the team's breacher and explosives expert, was inspecting his gear with a focused intensity. Each of them was an integral cog in the well-oiled machine that was our unit. Our mission was as daunting as it was vital: investigate the mysterious disappearance of several hikers near a cavern. The eerie silence surrounding these vanishings had escalated concerns to the highest level. As the chopper landed near the base of the mountain, a sense of unease settled over us. The vast wilderness contrasted sharply with our last mission in the urban confines of a village. This was a different beast, one that lurked in the shadows of nature. We disembarked swiftly, our boots crunching on the gravel. The mountain air was crisp, almost biting. "Form up. Eyes and ears open," I instructed, my voice steady despite the unknown we were about to face. Sergeant Ramirez moved to a vantage point, his sniper rifle ready. Staff Sergeant Lee began setting up a makeshift communications hub, while Sergeant Brooks and Corporal Davis flanked me as we approached the cave's mouth. The entrance was foreboding, a gaping maw in the mountainside. The remnants of a campsite lay scattered around, a clear sign of a hasty departure, or worse. "Looks like they made it this far," Corporal Davis observed, examining a discarded backpack. "Let's set up for the night." "We move at first light," I decided, sensing the need for caution in this unfamiliar terrain. As night fell, we established a perimeter around our camp. The darkness brought an unsettling silence, only broken by the occasional crackle of our radio and the soft whir of night vision equipment. Then, as we settled in, an unnerving sound echoed from the depths of the cave. A deep, guttural growl that seemed to reverberate through the very mountain itself. The sound was primal, unlike anything I'd heard in my years of service. We exchanged wary glances. This was no ordinary rescue mission. Something lurked within the abyss, something that defied explanation. As dawn broke, the eerie silence of the mountain was a stark reminder of the unknown that lay ahead. I briefed my team under the dim morning light. "Stay sharp, move quietly, and keep in visual range at all times. We don't know what we're dealing with yet." Entering the cave, the abyss, was like stepping into another world. Our headlamps pierced the darkness, revealing a labyrinthine network of tunnels and chambers. The air was heavy, damp, and carried a faint, unnerving odor. As we ventured deeper, we found scattered personal items: a torn jacket, a broken compass, a water bottle half buried under rocks. It painted a grim picture of panic and struggle. But it was the cave walls that unnerved us the most. They were covered in strange, ancient symbols, etched deep into the stone, seemingly pulsating in the flicker of our lights. "Never seen anything like this," whispered Corporal Davis, his voice echoing off the cavern walls. The symbols seemed to have a disorienting effect, making it hard to focus. Sergeant Ramirez, who had been scanning the area, suddenly held up a fist, the signal to halt. We froze, every sense heightened. He pointed towards a narrow passage where the unmistakable signs of a violent encounter lay. A splatter of dried blood, scraps of clothing, and deep gashes in the rock as if clawed by something massive. With tactical precision, we approached the passage, weapons at the ready. The narrow path twisted and turned, leading us to a small, secluded chamber. There, the grim reality of our mission became apparent. In the beam of my headlamp lay a mutilated body, torn apart with savage brutality. It was one of the missing hikers, beyond any help we could offer. The sight was a visceral shock to the team, but it hardened our resolve. This was no ordinary search and rescue. We were hunting a deadly predator. "Looks like large claws." "Predatory," Sergeant Brooks observed somberly, checking for any signs of life. We pushed deeper, I decided, the weight of command heavy on my shoulders. Whatever did this is still in here. We find it, we eliminate the threat. The team acknowledged with a quiet determination. We ventured deeper into the heart of the cave, leaving the echoes of the abyss behind us, unaware of the horrors that awaited in the shadows. In the claustrophobic confines of the cave's deeper reaches, each step became a calculated risk. The path constricted, forcing us to proceed in a single file. I led the way, with Ramirez covering our six. The tense silence was punctuated only by the soft sounds of our cautious movements and the occasional drip of water. "Thermal's no good here," Ramirez whispered into the comms, his voice barely above a breath. "Walls are messing with the readings." Staff Sergeant Lee, just ahead of Ramirez, kept his eyes glued to his tablet, monitoring our signal and mapping our progress. "GPS is sketchy, but I'm marking our path," he reported. The deeper we went, the more the cave seemed to close in around us. Sergeant Brooks and Corporal Davis maintained a steady pace, alert for any signs of the creature. Brooks's medical kit and Davis's breaching tools clinked softly with each step. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the beam of my headlamp. The speed was astonishing, a blur of motion too fast to track. We halted instantly, weapons trained on the darkness. "Contact," I hissed. "It's here." The creature was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It moved with an eerie agility, its pale form blending seamlessly into the shadows. It was clear it had adapted to the dark, using the cave's terrain to its advantage. "Flank it," I ordered. Ramirez and Lee moved to one side, while Brooks and Davis took the other, trying to corner the creature. But it was cunning. Almost as if it understood our tactics, it evaded us effortlessly, disappearing into the dark recesses of the cave. The brief glimpses we caught were horrifying. A grotesque, distorted figure, its eyes reflecting our lights with a malevolent glow. We regrouped, tension coursing through our ranks. "It's playing with us," Ramirez growled, frustration evident in his voice. Without warning, the creature struck. It was a blur of claws and teeth, launching itself from the shadows straight at Corporal Davis. He managed to get a shot off, but the creature was too fast. There was a sickening sound of tearing fabric and flesh. "Man down!" Brooks shouted, rushing to Davis's side. The creature retreated into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of blood and a wounded comrade. I knelt beside them, assessing the situation. Davis was conscious but in pain, his arm badly lacerated. "I've got you, Davis," Brooks said, his hands working quickly to stem the bleeding. "Captain, what's the call?" Lee asked, his voice steady despite the situation. "We pull back, regroup, and come up with a new plan," I replied, helping Brooks stabilize Davis for transport. As we retreated, carrying our injured comrade, the chilling reality set in. The predator was still out there, watching, waiting in the abyss, and we were venturing deeper into its lair. The cave transformed into a treacherous maze, its passages twisting and turning like a knot of serpents. The air grew colder, denser. We had no choice but to split up. The corridors were too narrow for our team to move together. I could feel the weight of the decision on my shoulders as I issued the orders. "Brooks, you take point with Davis. Head east. Ramirez, you're with me. We go west. Lee, you're central. Keep the comms live. We need constant updates." Their nods were terse, the unspoken tension clear. We split, our headlamps piercing the oppressive darkness. The cave's eerie silence was a stark contrast to the usual chatter on our comms. Brooks's voice crackled through the radio. "All clear so far, Captain, but these walls, they're not natural, they're carved." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cave's temperature. "Carved? As in man-made?" "Affirmative," Brooks replied. "Strange symbols. They look old, very old." Ramirez and I pushed through a narrow passage, the walls closing in around us. The sensation of being watched was palpable. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being led, herded even. Suddenly, Lee's voice cut through the static. "Captain, I've got movement on the thermal, but it's erratic. It's like it's everywhere and nowhere." "Keep a tight perimeter," I ordered. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As Ramirez and I moved deeper into the labyrinth, the cave's oppressive atmosphere intensified. Our headlamps flickered across bizarre etchings, symbols that seemed to dance and shift in the shadows. It was disorienting, disconcerting. Then, a scream shattered the silence, a scream of pure terror. It was Davis. "Brooks, report," I barked into the comms. "It's Davis, Captain." Brooks's voice was tense, strained. He's seeing things. Hallucinations. The walls are getting to him." "We need to regroup," I said. "Lee, guide us back." We found Brooks and Davis in a small chamber. Davis was on the ground, shaking, his eyes wide with fear. Brooks was trying to calm him, but it was clear the psychological toll was significant. "We need to get out of here," Brooks said, meeting my gaze. Her expression spoke volumes. I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. "We stick together, move slow and steady, watch each other's backs." As we proceeded, the cave seemed to constrict around us, the sense of being hunted growing with every step. The creature's presence was an ever-present shadow at the edge of our lights. Then Lee stopped, his tablet in hand. "Captain, look at this." He pointed to the screen where a pattern of movement was displayed, a pattern that was unmistakably intelligent. "It's hurting us," Ramirez said, his voice grim. "Like sheep." The chamber was like the belly of some primordial beast, vast and echoing. The air was heavy with the sense of an impending clash. Brooks, despite her severe leg wound, pushed herself to stay upright, her face a mask of determined agony. "Gear up," I commanded. "Lee, prep the explosives. Davis, support. Ramirez, find a sniper spot. Brooks, with me. You're too banged up." Brooks gave me a grim nod, sweat beading on her forehead. Lee and Davis moved with a silent efficiency, setting traps around the chamber's heart. Ramirez disappeared into the shadows, seeking higher ground for a clean shot. Brooks leaned heavily against a stalagmite, her breaths ragged, but her eyes alert. "I don't like this, Cap," Brooks rasped out. "Feels like we're walking into a grave." "You focus on staying alive," I replied, my hand briefly gripping her shoulder. The creature's entrance was heralded by a growl that seemed to rise from the very depths of hell. It slunk into the chamber, a horrific amalgamation of human and monster, its eyes burning with an unnatural light. "Hold," I breathed into the comms, waiting for the perfect moment. But fate had a cruel twist. Brooks, in an effort to shift for a better view, accidentally kicked a small stone. The creature's head snapped in her direction, its eyes locking onto Brooks. It lunged. "Brooks!" I yelled. But the beast was upon her in a heartbeat, its claws swiping viciously. I shouted the command. "Fire!" Ramirez's shot rang out, a perfect hit, but the creature was undeterred, its focus singularly on Brooks. Lee detonated the explosives, shaking the chamber, but still, the beast clung on, unyielding. In the turmoil, I caught sight of Brooks underneath the creature, her hands pushing against its hideous form. "It's human, Cap!" she screamed. It was human. Adrenaline pumping, I charged, my sidearm barking in my hand. The creature staggered under the onslaught, its attention finally diverted. Ramirez's next shot was a killing blow, straight through the creature's skull. It fell, its body convulsing grotesquely before going still. We approached cautiously, our guns still trained on its now motionless form. The sight that greeted us was horrifying. The creature bore traces of humanity, its features grotesquely twisted, a victim of some unimaginable transformation. Brooks lay nearby, a pool of blood forming around her, a hole through her midsection. "We killed a man," she choked out, her voice a broken whisper. Her eyes fluttered shut, and she stilled, gone. A suffocating silence enveloped us. "We need to report this," Lee said, his voice barely audible. I nodded, a heavy weight settling in my heart. "Let's move out." We exited the cave in silence, our minds grappling with the harrowing reality of what we'd encountered. As we stepped into the light, it dawned on me that some horrors are too profound, too unfathomable to fully comprehend. We had slain the beast within the abyss, but in doing so, we had uncovered a truth more terrifying than the creature itself. The real enemy was not just the monster we faced, but the darkness lurking within the heart of humanity, capable of such grotesque transformation. We left the cave with Brooks, burdened with a truth that would haunt us forever. The mouth of the cave loomed behind us, a silent testament to the terror we'd faced within. The mountain breeze carried away the stench of death, but the chill it brought seemed to seep into our bones, a constant reminder of the cold grip of fear we'd just escaped. Brooks's absence was a void among us, a gap where once there had been laughter. We trudged back to our base camp in a somber procession, each lost in their own thoughts. Ramirez's sharp eyes, which once scouted for threats, now seemed dulled, reflecting a pain he couldn't shoot down. Lee's hands, always steady on his radio, fidgeted with a nervous energy, as if trying to reach out to the silence left by our fallen medic. Davis walked behind, the weight of the explosive gear on his back no match for the burden in his heart. I couldn't shake the image of Brooks's final moments, the life ebbing from her eyes as she whispered a quiet farewell. The monster we'd slain lay behind us, a beast that was once as human as any of us, twisted into a creature of nightmares by some unknown force. The questions haunted me. What had turned it? Could it happen again? Were we ever truly safe? As we reached the camp, the rest of the team looked to me for orders, but all I could offer was a nod toward the awaiting chopper. Our mission was over, but the echoes of it would follow us long after we'd left this forsaken mountain. The ride back was silent, each man lost in his own grief and the unspoken bond that we'd carry forward, the memory of a sister in arms, whose laughter would no longer grace our ears, but whose spirit would never leave our side. The chopper lifted off, carrying us away from the abyss, away from the darkness. But as we ascended, I knew that some part of us would remain in those caves forever, a tribute to the sacrifice that had been made. We would report, debrief, and eventually move on to the next mission. But the shadows we'd encountered in that mountain would linger, a stark reminder that sometimes the true horror lies not in the beast itself, but in the humanity it once held.